that division is gone, and with the economics being what they are now, we don't know where General Motors is going, but they still have the hydromatic transmission, which is made for trucks. I think it's made in Spain someplace. So that was an area where before I went into dentistry, and then I had gone to the University of Detroit for the pre-dental. There were some courses that I had to take for entry into the dental school. And so academically, I have been involved the entirety of my life in learning, but there are so many areas. I don't have any of the people that I went to school with the engineering, and only occasionally do I meet somebody that I went to school with in high school. And I try to live in the moment, apparently, because I really should. There are people who have friends that go back to high school days, and I have friends, and then I move on, and then make new friends, and so that some people live in the past and they talk about the basketball game that they won in the tournament in 1939. And I guess that's an important thing. That's not something that I would say. It's interesting that you ask the questions, and I have no answer. I mean, I don't remember those people. At the moment, they're important, like you're important right now. But a year from now, I won't remember who you are, I don't think, and you probably won't remember me either.
Okay. All right. Thinking about your entire span of time there in Korea, what would be the most memorable moment, your tour duty in Korea, looking back on it?
I guess I would have. I never thought of it. The most memorable part is that I felt I had a duty and a responsibility to this country. When the time came, they gave me leave not to disturb my training as a dentist. I finished. The memorable part is that I did the right thing as I saw it, as I was trained by my parents, who were lovely, wonderful people, and grandparents, to go out there and say, I'm ready now. Thanks for the opportunity to finish what I was doing. And where do I go? And having been accepted, for me it was a proud thing to be a member of the Air Force, United States Air Force. And to have served honorably and to be honorably discharged, and not to bring shame, but honor to the family. And take care of my family in a way that it was part of it when I was there. They were also proud. My mother worried. My dad had served in the military, and and my grandfather. And so the opportunity to have been able to serve honorably. Service, and I'm doing it right now. When I see patients, the most important thing in our office, if you ask anybody, they say, what's the most important thing? The patient. What's the second most important thing? The patient. What's the third most important thing? The patient. And where do we come in? We don't.
And this is probably one of those curious questions. And let's say, how would, from a professional development standpoint, during your stay in Korea, how would you say you professionally developed? Was it by leaps or bounds? I understand you indicated that when you got out, you felt fairly comfortable in your profession.
In my profession, in dentistry, but I was a dentist. I was as competent as a person that would be able to. The board of dentistry said I was competent. My instructors and professors said I was competent. I was competent as a beginner. And what does that mean? It's a commencement. What does commencement mean? To learn, the beginning. It's not there's not a finality. And so I was qualified, but not to do other things, which by virtue of the teachers that I had there, and anybody who knew more than I did was my teacher. And I appreciated that. And so what I did when I had not lacking before I went in, because I started as an engineer, I was a fairly competent musician, I had good training, but and then I was a dentist, so I was a doctor, learned, supposedly. But since I came back, and that's 50 years ago, I have amassed lots of degrees, not because I'm so smart, but because I was so lacking. And so I have been continuing student the entirety of my life.
Okay.
As I said, you know, I have an MBA from Michigan State. I have a law degree from the Detroit College of Law. I have taught at various universities. I've lectured. I've written books. So all of this is a learning experience. Okay. So I'm admitted to practice law in the state of Michigan. As I said earlier, the Michigan State Supreme Court, the federal courts, the federal courts of appeal, and the United States Supreme Court. And that just means that I'm learning. Right. It doesn't mean that nobody has ever hired me to argue a case in the United States Supreme Court. I can tell you that. I would do it gratis and pay for the opportunity, but unfortunately nobody's going to ask me. But that's what happened there, is I realized how much I had to learn. And that was clear. Sure. And so when I got out, I started to continue learning. Okay. And so I'm learning up to today. Okay.
All right. Okay. All right. Let's see now, you're towards the end of your tour in Korea. And what was it like when you started winding down? You knew you were getting to be a short timer, so to speak, and you were wrapping
I had a
up
chart
there.
like everybody else. It's called the Figmo chart.
Okay.
And I shall not tell you what that means, but nevertheless, it's a way of keeping track. And I remember the last one I was short. I had scratched out 30 days. Now what happens is sometimes you get to the end and then they don't have a replacement, and so you postpone or so. And I remember the first few days I checked off squares. And then I got to a point where I forgot to check them off. And then we got to where I hadn't packed the boxes that we were supposed to put together, you know, so you can ship your stuff. The accumulated detritus of living. And there were things that I wanted to keep, and purchases that I made when I was in Japan. And so I didn't even keep track of the dates. I didn't cross them off, so that's the irrelevance. I was there, I got up in the morning, I did my job, and by the time it got to the end of the day, I was happy to lay down and go to sleep to be ready for tomorrow. However, I have to say this, since you asked me that, one of the delights of my tour was midnight chow, which meant that all the personnel who worked all night, the officers of the day who worked at night, and then there was midnight chow. And midnight chow was always special because the cooks would take care of the people who worked at night. And they had special things. And so I always had a good relationship with the cooks. Anybody that had a problem was always welcome. In the dental clinic, and every morning at 5:30 there would be the sweet cakes that they had. I don't know how they were able to make this stuff or where they hid the good stuff, but it was there, and the clinic would always get a little batch of somebody would come in for the morning batch. So whoever had an appointment also, it was there. But I remember the midnight chow was great, standing in line and talking to the troops, and it was quiet, and there wasn't a lot going on. And I got into the habit of eating late at night, which was not a good habit to get, but that's way beyond what we're talking about.
Oh, no, this is part of your military experience.
You could tell I enjoyed being there.
Sure.
I enjoyed the opportunity to demonstrate that I was a person of value.
Right. Okay. And just one or two other questions. What type of Air Force base was Kainsan?
Kunsan was an Air Force base for the Japanese when the Japanese had occupied Korea. Okay. And it was on the tip, so that it was one of the closer places to Japan. Okay. And for us, it was an F-86 fighter group. Okay. And I spent a lot of time with the fighter pilots who would rotate from Japan. The 5th Air Force was based in